Well, thanks for coming on the show. I want to talk a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are. You have a pretty fascinating story. What did you do before the current company?
So before this company, I was actually helping some companies become franchises, and just always very fascinated with passionate entrepreneurs. And sometimes they always envision, okay, well, I've got this amazing product, or I've got this amazing service, or a solution to this problem or that. I want to branch this thing out. And so a lot of folks think about franchising, and I thought, I'd like to know more. So I become friends with somebody that was just, through some mutual friends, that was just a franchise expert. He was the guru. He helped franchise Massage Envy, for example, or Fantastic Sam's, and then helped him scale a couple of recent franchises. And I loved that. It was super fun, but it didn't fill my tank like I was hoping it would. And then previous to that, I lived in California, and I had an ice cream company.
I want to talk about the ice cream company because now that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because what is it, Halo Top? Or?
Well, Halo Top, they always say, what is it? Flattery is, what was it? Competition is, I'm trying to remember the quote exactly. Apple was famous for how people copy you, and it's the best form of flattery, I think is what it was. And but yeah, Halo Top, the founders of Halo Top had actually called me when they were just in maybe 70 stores, and I think this is when we were probably in about 10,000 grocery stores.
And what was the name of your ice cream?
It's called Arctic Zero.
Okay.
And it was the world's lowest calorie protein-based ice cream, basically. And it was fat-free, gluten-free, lactose-free, diabetic-friendly, 150 calories per pint, 20 grams of whey protein, 8 grams of fiber, and you could pronunciate everything on the label. And so we made it so that people could eat the whole thing at 10 o'clock at night, watching a movie, guilt-free, look better tomorrow type of thing. And but yeah, we got it into one grocery store, then up to about 18,000. And then it was Haagen-Dazs is number one best-selling pint in America, then Ben & Jerry's, and then we were number 3. And,
that's incredible.
So it was fun. I was an ice cream man, as my kids would say. And but the big thing is we catered to the folks that couldn't eat ice cream or wouldn't eat ice cream.
Yeah.
And so your fitness aficionados could eat it, and it tasted good, and it wasn't didn't have sugar alcohols in it, so it wasn't like a laxative or something like that. But the Halo Top folks, they called me up one day and they said, "Hey, Garrett, we see what you guys are doing. Wow, let's work together. That would be awesome to just light things on fire." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, we're in like 10,000 stores. You're in like 80. And I said, what? And I didn't say it like that yet with them. They're like, well, we could collaborate. We could share some of our trade secrets with you. We do some NDA stuff. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
We're in 10,000 grocery stores. You're in like 80 stores. And they want like our co-packer information. They want to know who our suppliers are. And they start asking these really interesting questions on a first call. And I'm like, guys, I appreciate the call. I really do. And I know where you guys are going. This is going to be great for you guys, but I'm not going to build my competition. No offense, guys. Good luck. And, a couple of years later, then they raise a bunch of money. They don't own any other company, and they're everywhere now, which is great. But I mean, that was about 12 years ago.
And who did you sell yours to?
So Nestle came. They were distributing our product on their trucks. And usually what's interesting about Nestle is they start looking at brands that are moving, have some really good turns. And a lot of times when you're trying to get into a store, say Walmart or Target, for example, those retailers will basically say, well, if you want to be on our store shelves, you need to talk to our main distributor who handles frozen, which in this case was Nestle. And Nestle's like a little bit begrudgingly, they're like, no, not interested, because now you're kind of competing on the shelf with us, but our retailer is Walmart, largest retailer in food. Okay, well, I guess we have to do that. And so they started distributing our product across the country into some of those retailers. And before long, they started noticing that our turns on the shelf were like 3 to 6 times more than theirs. And so they were constantly having to stock more of our product on their trucks.
Right.
But what's nice about it, though, too, is it's a way in which that they can gauge the competition and verify the numbers are accurate to what maybe that person is saying that they are. And so by them doing this, test, if you will, to see what our product, how often it was moving on the shelves, they're like, okay, they're moving a lot of product. We know what their numbers are. And most of the products on their truck are their own. And so what ends up happening is they look at them as acquisition targets. And so they're like, well, we don't have anything in the better for you category. This might be something to look at. And so then those conversations started to really amp up. And so then that's kind of when it was like, okay, great. This is great. Time to exit.
How did you get into ice cream? Did you have any history with ice cream? Like, I love ice cream.
Who doesn't love ice cream?
Well, that is true. Ice cream is the best thing.
Besides my wife. My wife does not like ice cream.
Really?
She's like,
did she like yours?
She was okay. She was a little agnostic towards it. But, her big thing was like, why couldn't you ever get into like pie? That was her thing. She's like, why couldn't it be pie? I was like, sorry, hun. Something about baked fruit probably, was my hang up. But I just loved ice cream. And just growing up, that I don't know if it's just reminiscent of growing up in California and you have the ice cream man go by and it's just like nostalgia, good humor ice cream. It's just like, oh, this is awesome. But I'd always work out and I'd crave ice cream after the gym. I'm like, man, this is like, I'm going to negate everything I just did in the gym. There's got to be a better way. And, and you're going, you're choking down a very chalky, gross protein drink. And you're like, all right, I'll just deal with this. I'm going to get the benefit. I said, well, why isn't there a protein ice cream out there? I started thinking about it. And I was talking to my buddy at lunch one. He's like, dude, Garrett, you should do it. In fact, let's do it, type of thing. And that was basically it. We started with a soft serve. It was the world's lowest calorie soft serve. It was about 22 calories for a 4-ounce serving. And celebrities started eating it in LA and Hollywood and New York and Florida. And we started getting into frozen yogurt shops. But I got tired of dealing with the frozen yogurt shops that would nickel and dime us.
Really?
On product. They're like, we want you to make it cheaper. And I'm like, well, you guys are asking for a Ferrari at a Honda price. I can't do that. These ingredients are really good ingredients.
Right.
And so then what ended up happening was it's just like, what, we're spending way too much time talking about nickels. I said, what, let's put this into a prepackaged pint. And we had been getting coaxed to do that more and more because there was different celebrity folks that would go to these yogurt shops, stock up for the weekends, and the store owners would say, hey, you got to get these things into pints because people want to take this stuff home. And so we said, all right, we'll start working on that. And so we said, okay, what can we do? And I said, let's remove every possible excuse for someone not to eat this product. Let's take it straight out. That way it's like, okay, well, I can't eat it because it's got fat in it. Yeah. Well, it's fat-free. Well, I'm lactose intolerant. Well, it's safe for you now. There's no issue with that. Well, I'm gluten-free. Well, great, because there's no gluten in the product. And this is back before it was like, it was kind of very granola back then. And so then went down that line. I'm like, okay, what else can we do? So we would demo the product, and I would go to a demo the product at a really good natural food store in California or something. And people would try it, and I'd have people spit it out.
Really?
Into a trash can right in front of me like, this is terrible. You're never going to sell any of this stuff. Just quit what you're doing and do something else. And I got that over and over again. I'm like, really? And then I'd have other people that would be like in tears like, this is a godsend. Thank you so much. And it was like, okay, good. And again, it wasn't made for the 95% of the population. It was made for like the 5% that want this super niche thing. But there was so much good on that label. How do you get people to read that in this, they're going down the freezer aisle and there's tons of products there. It's like, how do you distinguish what yours is and what isn't? And so my wife brought up a good point. She's like, I don't want to open up a cold freezer door, reach in, grab a freezing cold pint of ice cream, and then look at it. She's like, that's just too much work, especially for her. She doesn't like ice cream. I'm like, okay, how do I catch your eye? So I said, no one put calorie counts on the front of a package. And I said, no one's done that. we're going to do it. And so we were the first ones to put calorie counts on the front of a package. And so people would walk by and they see 150 calories per pint on the front of the package. They would then open it, grab it, and then even realize on the back that there was amazing stuff in it as well, because you had more real estate basically to write with. And so then we started moving pints. And so then it became a couple million pints every single month were being sold nationwide. And then on Amazon, it's kind of a funny thing.
You could sell it on Amazon?
Yeah, we sold it on Amazon. We were one of the first. So Amazon reached out to us and said, we don't have really any frozen products. The only time it was like Chow Bella and a few other things. But we think this would work really well. And they're like, you should sell this on Amazon. I'm like, well, we're going to have to talk about overnighting ice cream across the country. That's expensive. And they're like, we're Amazon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, great. This is terrific. And it was perfect. And I looked at it as, okay, this is a great way to get basically getting a product in front of people so that they can basically use their spoon and start digging in. But I thought, for us to get our product from San Diego to New York was about $120 all in. So it was the cost of shipping, it's the cost of the product, an insulated container, and dry ice. And it was expensive. And 90% of that cost, about 85% of that cost was the shipping. I said, there's got to be a better way to facilitate getting product around the country. And this was like an answer to prayer, basically. It was like, well, we're Amazon. And so basically what we ended up doing, I thought, well, let's do this. If we need to get it to the buyer, someone that wants to talk about it in New York City, in Rochester, or wherever it is. I remember, what was it? I think it was CNN or Fox News, or who was it? Dr. Oz, for example, perfect example.
Really?
Yeah, and then stores would say, hey, send us some samples. We want to put it in your stores. And we said, great. But every time we said yes, we knew it was going to cost us over $120 to ship them samples. Mm-hmm. And so if you've got thousands of stores nationwide that want to test your product, imagine the money you've got to outlay, right? And so here enters Amazon and says, hey, we would love your product on our, in our inventory. And I said, terrific. So what we ended up doing is I decided, okay, I'm going to sell it as if I'm selling it to myself. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to that buyer in New York. We're fulfilling it from our office warehouse, and we're packing it with dry ice and everything like before. But now we're selling it to ourselves. So there's a margin there that's coming back to us anyway. Mm-hmm. So the net cost for us for shipping went from being almost, $95 down to like $9.
Oh, interesting.
And so our cost to acquire a customer dramatically dropped at that point. And so then what I did, it could be a case study, we sent out product everywhere at almost no cost.
Right.
And the same time that we're doing that, it helped boost our numbers.
That's crazy.
For Amazon, right?
Yeah.
It was going all over the place. And so they started really getting us better terms and different things like that. But we had an influencer before there were influencers that loved our product. Her name was Hungry Girl, Lisa Lillian. And she had some of the New York Times bestsellers talking about food products and ingredients and different things like that. And she had an email blast that would go out to 1 million, I think it was 1.2 million people every single day.
Oh, wow.
And these people were just diehards. And we were talking one day. She's like, Garrett, I'm going to talk about our Arctic Zero. And I said, terrific. That's awesome. She goes, no, you don't understand. She goes, when I talk about a product, you have to buckle up. And so she goes, I'm going to give you some notice. And so I'm like, great. Mm-hmm. So she's going to talk about it. Terrific. Okay, so we go to GoDaddy and we're like, okay, put us on an independent server. We need to do all these different things. Terrific, no problem. Well, she gives us a heads up like the day before. It's releasing tonight at 12:01. Okay, yeah, no problem. We've got this. This is no problem. And then all of a sudden, about 5 a.m, I start getting people start asking me. They're like, dude, have you seen what's going on? I go, what are you talking about? And I go and I log in, check my email, and I've got I think it was like 380 emails from people saying, I can't get it off Amazon. Where is it? Yeah. I can't get it in my store. Where is it? And so, but we already had a direction. So if people it would direct them directly to Amazon. But then Amazon was like, their fulfillment was getting wonky because it was selling out so fast that we had to keep updating how much product was there. But the problem is every time we would update with inventory that we didn't have, We had to figure out how we were going to get it in time in order to match the fulfillment needs that Amazon places on the sellers. And so we're like, okay, we got to get this thing going. And but we started noticing our website kept going down that day, and we're like, what is going on? And I call up GoDaddy. I go, we were on a dedicated server. What's going on? And he starts looking through numbers, and then he sees the numbers, and he just drops an expletive to me. And I'm like, whoa, that's not characteristic of GoDaddy to be cussing on the phone. But it was just out of exclamation of like, I've never seen this before. I'm like, what is it that you're seeing? He goes, you're getting about 45 visits per second right now. I go, per second? He goes, yeah, your bandwidth is like astronomical in terms of people going to your site trying to get your product. I'm like, okay, what can we do about that? Because we're getting a denial of, of service basically for customers, and it's pissing them off. And so he made some adjustments and stuff like that. But I was like, come on, we talked about this, right? And but anyway, long story short, we started moving so much product that we're spending about $15,000 a week on just dry ice. And so we're like, okay, we got to do something here, because if anyone's familiar with selling on Amazon they have rough terms for most people. It's like, oh yeah, you got 30 net 30. Oh, fantastic. And some people are like, oh, I'm net 60. And it's like, it can be debilitating and put you out of business real quick. And so at this point, we're ranked 57 out of 552,000 food items. And so we're moving product by the truckload. We'd fill up 3 FedEx trucks every single day.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that it was in, I think at the time, we were in about 3,000 grocery stores, but still not close enough to the majority of America. And so what's funny is I called our point person there at Amazon. Her name was Teresa. I can't remember her last name. She was awesome. And I go, Teresa, I am turning off the spigot. She's like, whoa, what are you talking about? I go, you guys owe us so much money. And we've spent so much money on dry ice. I said, we are going to be out of business because we have just been we're running on vapor, And she's like, no, don't turn it off. Hold on. Give me 30 minutes. So we wait 30 minutes. She calls me back. She goes, I just talked to, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he's like,
Jeff Bezos.
It was the guy that talks directly to Jeff Bezos at the time. And he's the guy that makes it happen. And she goes, we're going to get you paid up everything that we owe you to the day today. And going forward, you're going to be net 15. And for anyone that knows what that's like, there's not many people that are net 15 on Amazon. And so that was a really cool thing that we got to talk about. But from at the same time, it was also a marketing play, because early on, Amazon would market your product in an email blast to people around the United States, and you didn't have to pay anything for it. So we were getting all this great free publicity that people were getting excited about a product that they could eat guilt-free. And so it was, again, that answer to their 10 o'clock sweet tooth, they could eat that. And so anyway, that's kind of, about a long way to get there. Sorry about that.
No, yeah.
But
it's incredible.
It was fun.
What did you learn about branding through that process?
Well, competing with these massive monolith of companies that have been around for 100 plus years, in the case of Dryers and Breyers brand, but specifically Dryers goes back quite a while. Trying to get shelf space is difficult in grocery stores. But even more difficult is freezer space, because it's such a tight space, and it's just the limitations. That's it. That's all that's on the shelf. Sorry.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for us? And so sometimes, and it's kind of against the law, but it kind of isn't, there's ways around it. They sometimes say, well, you've got to pay slotting fees. And sometimes they say, okay, well, we can't call them slotting fees anymore. We're going to say you got to pay for the promo ads that we have run every week, a buy one, get one free or something like that. And so I basically said, you know what? We're a premium product. There's nothing like it anywhere in the world. It is what it is. And you either want it, or Gelson's down the street wants it, or Erewhon down the street wants it in Hollywood, or you name it, Whole Foods, depending on what division. And they're like, okay, all right, terrific. We'll bring on 2 SKUs, or whatever. And then they bring on 5, 6, and then we have 8 flavors sitting on the shelf. And we'd always tell them, we're like, get prepared, because it turns significantly more than a traditional pint. Oh yeah, we'll see it. We'll believe it when we see it. And then all of a sudden, they didn't order enough. And so they've got empty shelves and they look like a fool, right? and they start ordering a lot more. But from a branding standpoint, that was the thing is, okay, how do we get people to recognize that this product is completely different? And at the time, like I said, there weren't really influencers as we know them today. But I had made friends with this lady, Lisa Lillian, at a food show. And I had recognized her name from back in the day when Yahoo was news and stuff like that. And people went to Yahoo. She would write all these cool articles. And so I recognized her name. And she's like, oh, yeah. And I had seen some of the things that she had done for other brands by just simply talking about them. You know, no one's paying her or anything like that. It's just kind of like she's this food journalist, basically. And she's talking about it. And she started talking about it. So I always mention her as being one of the main catalysts to really get us in front of people. Because, I mean, we would go and we would do demos on a regular basis to build some brand equity there. And the goal was, okay, if you build enough of a following in each store, those individuals will then support that store. And so you go around store to store doing demos across the country, one store at a time, and you build up maybe 15 customers there. They're buying it regularly and telling their friends. And then we would just get the product in front of different celebrities sometimes. Just, not that we were pursuing them per se, but, you know, everyone knows someone that knows someone that knows someone, right? And so we would start sending out product and people would talk about it. And before long, we'd have these weird followings of groups and people. And I would go and I would talk about it at Weight Watchers, for example. And so a lot of the women were like, this is amazing. This whole pint is only 3 points. And they are ecstatic. And so people go, well, I'm not going to buy this just for like one night this week. I'm buying this breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the entire week because I can eat ice cream guilt-free and look better tomorrow. Done deal. And so the branding was basically, again, you know, the answer to your 10 o'clock sweet tooth. It was that thing. Get it in front of people, you know, break up with your boyfriend today, make him wish he didn't the day after because you look even better, you know, or whatever it is, you know, or the guy, you know, you name it. And so it was just one of those things where that guilty pleasure and how we get people to do that. And if someone's lifting weights and they want to cheat by eating something sweet, but it doesn't impact them. And so again, it was kind of the branding of, this is a product for anybody. And so we had a lot of diabetics that were really ecstatic about that.
I bet.
And then moms that said, you know what, we don't want to put sugar alcohol products in front of our kids because they're instant laxatives, basically. And so we didn't have any of that stuff in there either. And so that's kind of how the branding started to evolve. And then, of course, when we're in different stores, Costco was completely different than Whole Foods. And then, you know, then you're looking at hospitality. Like, for example, we got into the Mattel Corporation. We had freezers. We had freezers there. And so people could go into that cafeteria and buy the product there. And so that started getting some notoriety. Blizzard Entertainment, for example, making all the Warcraft video games or whatever it is. All the gamers started eating it while they're playing games or programming or whatever. And then, you know, pharmaceutical companies, we got into their facilities. And but yeah, you name it, just big campuses, because you get it in front of a campus. A perfect example, let's say it's a Google campus. It's not like you're getting it into a store. You're getting it where there's 10,000 plus eyeballs that are seeing products on a daily basis. And they've got the financial wherewithal. And they can buy the product and they don't even look at the price at that point because they're all paid tremendous salaries typically. And they start buying it. They start seeing it, and then they stock it in their freezer, and a lot of companies are now providing it, putting it in the freezer automatically. And so it's the equivalent of having like 15 stores from just being in one campus, for example. And so that was the goal, was to get it out everywhere, to get eyeballs in front of it. So that's
why'd you sell it?
Just, you know.
Big offer? Was it a good offer?
Yeah, it was the offer. My business partner had gotten a little bit goofy. And so you know how that is. It's like I always say, money's a good magnifier. If someone's a cool guy before, they're even more amazing after. And if they're kind of a little bit of a jerk, then they just kind of become a little bit of a rager, you know, afterward. And so, but I liked it, but I didn't love it, right? I'm like, there's got to be something more. And it was just the right time. And I kind of wanted to get out of California at that point because it was just on its way down. I mean, I always tell people there's nothing better than the early 80s, well, all the 80s actually, and mid to late 90s in California. And then it just, taxes, traffic, politics, everything, and it just cratered.
And you were in San Diego?
Yeah, I was in the San Diego area. So specifically, if anyone knows where Temecula is or Fullerton in Orange County, those were kind of my growing up spots.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then was it? I mean, you left. You wanted to get out, so you sold the ice cream place. But you could have moved here and still done the ice cream thing, right? Or no?
Not really, because
Really?
back in the day, I mean, we couldn't really do what we were doing remotely. You know, all the employees were there at our base of operations in the Escondido areas where we were basically at, and in Temecula, and then we had a lot of our co-packers were there in Southern California, and then our freezer warehouses were spread across the United States, but also were there based in Southern California. And the Natural Food Show was always there in California every year. So there was a lot of things holding us there. And I had spent 33 years in California. So it was like, okay, I'm going to stay put. But then after, basically being like, okay, let's exit. Let's do this thing. And I went, okay. But then you look at it, you're like, the state of California and the tax rates, maybe I don't want to be in California anymore. And so it made so much sense at that point to go, okay, let's get out of Dodge here. And I got family and a lot of friends here that have been like coaxing us to get out of California. So I always say, and we've been here now in Utah 10 years. And I always say, we moved from California to Utah before it was trendy.
Yeah.
And
now everybody's doing it.
Now everybody's doing it, right? And so we got out of Dodge, and then I have a brother-in-law that's got an amazing company, and he invited me to ride it with him and help in a small way, and grew it tremendously. By the time I had exited from that company, because I wasn't passionate about it, and I was good at it, but I wasn't passionate about it. It was one of those things where you're kind of trying to finding yourself. It was a company called Mountain Crane, and one of the top crane companies in the United States. And at the time, it wasn't. It was probably a top 100, but after I had left, it was like a top 30. And but it scaled it to almost $70 million a year, and sorry, it wasn't. It was 60. It was a little more than 60, and but when we had gotten there, it was around up. It was like 28 million or something like that, and so that was great. But it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not super passionate about cranes, but it's a phenomenal company and just incredibly well run. If anyone knows Paul Belcher, he is a brilliant CEO and founder, and he took something super small and just scaled it to this amazing top company in the crane industry in the world, not just domestically. And but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I gotta find my thing. What is it that I would love to do? Like I'm not a morning person. How can you get me up and be passionate about waking up at 6 a.m? Take a lot, right? It's like, I don't care how many Monster drinks or whatever you're going to give me. It's like, how, what's going to get you up? And that was kind of the struggle. It's like finding that, because I'll stay up till 2 a.m, and then, but, and so I started just kind of, I had spent some time in Asia and the Philippines and China specifically, and I would always be interacting with folks there, and specifically in the Philippines, and I just fell in love with the Philippine people, and but didn't serve a mission in the Philippines or anything like that. I served a mission actually in Mexico, and but I always say the Philippines is the Mexico of Asia, and I say customer service. You're talking to somebody and they're from the Philippines. You can hear them smiling on the other line, and they're genuinely smiling and happy and grateful to be talking to someone. And I just love the fact that the people were just so happy and genuine and warm. And I always just think, okay, what could I do, to just kind of feel this good on a regular basis. And I was working with a company called SOAR. At one point, Paul Allen, founder Ancestry.
I know Paul Allen well.
Yeah, and Paul and their team, they're building some really cool AI software, and so they were doing a lot of stuff with different members of their team that were from the Philippines. And so I had an assistant from the Philippines, and I just fell in love with having an assistant from the Philippines and having all these amazing folks in our on our team. And Paul's like, okay, we're trying to scale this thing. We need to build some revenue out for this company. I think we could probably do it, this way or that way. And I'm like, I think we could probably sell some amazing services through folks that know graphic design, video editing, and just a lot of different, really specific niches to fill a need for a lot of domestic employers. And he's like, and they're kind of looking at doing that anyway, so it was like perfect timing. So we started doing that, and there was a lot of success. And so we started doing that. And then, like anything, it's like, okay, I'm doing a lot of work here. I could be making a lot more money, and I could be having a lot more fun doing this. And having been an entrepreneur, it's hard to work for somebody after you. I always tell people, I go, are you sure you want to be an entrepreneur? And they're like, yeah, they've read all these amazing books, and they're like, oh yeah, I'd love to be my own boss. And some people can do it, and then there's a lot of people that can't do it. And so it's like that bug, you the moment you're an entrepreneur and you go out on your own, it's like you've opened the jar and you can't close the jar back again, because it's like you love running the show, if you will. You love being able to be a pioneer in an industry, a disruptor. Like Arctic Zero, we were a disruptor in ice cream. In that $20 billion industry, no one had ever done anything remotely close to what we were doing. And we had a huge target on our back. And now if you go in a grocery store, now you see like 50 types of pints of ice cream with calorie counts on the front. And it's like, wow. But no, it was one of those things where, I thought, okay, well, it's hard for me to work for an organization and answer to a lot of different folks.
Sure.
And so at that point I had been, so it was cool in terms of the directions that company was going, but I thought there's got to be something more fun. And so I, by some coaxing from a few different folks, they're like, Garrett, you should create a separate company, create something again like Arctic Zero, but in this space. And so I said, I would love to create a premium staff augmentation company and take the most brilliant, amazing individuals that want an opportunity to change their life. And and I'm a big believer that talent and skills and experience are fairly and widely distributed around the world, but opportunity is not. And so how do we create an opportunity to help others in other countries? It's kind of like my two favorite books, I think you and I were talking about it once, was The Prosperity Paradox and How You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. And I just love those two books because it just really, they were kind of the eureka I found at aha moments for me. And I said, I want to create an LG or Samsung of South Korea, an Udo Noodles of Africa, Bimbo Bakeries of Latin America, with creating a company that like inspires some hope. And so my goal was, okay, I'm going to hire amazing members of my team from the Philippines and other surrounding countries. We're in about 15 countries now. And we're going to pay them 5 to 10 times more than a living wage. So it instantly takes them from poverty and into the middle class in less than 60 days. And so for me, I was like, this moves the needle more than ice cream ever did, because you get to literally see their faces change, the countenance change, because now they look at it and they're like, it's not simply that they were praying for a change in their life and they had that glimmer of hope, but they didn't think it was ever going to happen and come to fruition. And now they go, I can have more than 4 things in my refrigerator. I can buy a car for the first time. We had a member of our team from Venezuela and speaks 4 languages. Worked for the United Nations. They didn't pay her hardly anything. Master's degree in fine art and graphic design. Top school, studied, and very incredibly poor, as everyone knows in Venezuela. It's really bad in Venezuela. And about 2 weeks into her working with us, she sends me a picture of a bed. She goes, I bought my first bed.
Oh, wow.
And and she's in her 20s. She bought her first bed. And I thought, you know what? You've got Americans complaining that their gigabit internet speeds aren't fast enough. And here she's buying a bed. I'm like, this is what I like. This is what I'm going to do. And so I'd then there'd be other members of our team that we would hire. And, they're They're able to buy a car, which saves them 2 hours every day. You know, one's like a minister at his local congregation, and he's like, I take multiple buses to pick up people and bring them to church every Sunday, and it takes me 2 hours to do that. And I bought a car for the first time, and he's in his 30s, and he goes, it takes me 20 minutes now. And it's like those types of different changes. We had a member of our team, she goes, we just bought furniture for the first time. We've been sitting on the floor for years. People would come over and we sit on the floor. And we're like, we've got couches now. And it's like those types of things, getting people from poverty and into the middle class, that I just love. And so what we did is we wanted to focus on finding the best talent. And so we get about 150 applications for a specific position. And we...
like 150 a day, 150
per position. It's usually
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So it's usually within a couple of days. And we'll have 20 positions open that rotate probably every couple of days, and we'll get about 150 applications per day per position basically. So our recruiting team is busy, as you can imagine, and we narrow it down. They have to have a bachelor's degree as a minimum from a top 3 school. They have to have English like yours and mine. And then they have to have serious experience, usually having worked with a Fortune 500 company. And so then what we do is then we put them in front of a client, typically domestic. They're 99% of our clients are domestic. And the client says, yeah, I'm looking for an accountant. Okay, here you go. I'm looking for someone that is an amazing video editor or graphic designer. Here you go. I need a vendor relations expert. I need a full stack developer, UI, UX expert. I need somebody that's got Go experience. I need somebody that's got, they've got some basic customer service. And we don't really deal with customer service or business development reps, but we're very scalpel, niche specific. E-commerce experts. I mean, we've got a couple of $1 billion companies that have our folks because they are amazing. And they don't complain, and they're grateful. And that's my favorite thing, is that they're just so happy and beaming to have a full-time job where they can dedicate their time 40 hours a week with one of our clients, and they get all the different benefits. So we not only pay them 5 to 10 times more than living wage, but we give them top medical and dental, the same that the 1%ers basically earn in the country. So they have that for medical and dental for their family and themselves. And then we have a clinical psychologist with a PhD for mental health, because that's a huge thing, because they're all 100% remote. And so we wanted to make sure that those types of things are taken care of. And then we put some fun things together, like a snack allowance and paid maternity, paternity leave, and then
Wait, so
summits.
What's the model? Do they all work for you? And then okay, because I was wondering, well, you're giving the benefits, all that. But that makes sense now. So these companies will come to you and they're like, hey, I need an accountant, for example.
Yes.
And you'll be like, all right, here's the various candidates that will have work on your project. But what they're really doing is they're hiring you, and that employee is then working full-time for them.
Yep.
Interesting.
100%. And so we've vetted them, background checked, and we're taking care of all their needs. And treating them like they've never been treated before. By a lot of American companies will treat people like tools. And I was just like, and we get sometimes clients are like, well, this is what I want them to do, and they get very demanding. And I say, you know what? We vet our people so carefully to make sure that they are just amazing. We do the same thing with our clients, and sometimes it's just not a right fit. And I said, but I've got 2 companies that I would like to refer you to. And I say a little bit more softer than that, but without telling them that you're a total a-hole, man. There's no way. This person is too amazing to give to someone that's not going to treat them with respect as a human being. And so we're very selective in that respect. But what I was finding, though, real quickly was we'd have 150 people applying for a position. We'd only hire the top 3. And there was 147 people that were just wanting a change, and they're not getting it. And I said, I feel bad telling 147 people no for one reason or the other. And so I said, let's create a separate entity. And we created a company called Hire Mango, which is which is basically I almost said e-commerce platform, but it's a
like e-learning.
No. So I'm trying to think the best way to phrase it, but what we do is it's set up so that it is a marketplace for talent.
Okay.
And so you've got amazing individuals on this platform that didn't make the cut for KJ just yet. I don't know if I mentioned that's my name of my company, KJ. Yeah. And so it's a proving ground. It's a learning space. So now maybe they need more education. Maybe they need more experience. Maybe they need to work on their English. And if they can get it to the level that it needs to be at, then they can reapply to KJ over and over and over again until we were able to give them the thumbs up and say yes and get them a client through KJ. And so the pay and the benefits are significantly better with KJ, but where much is given, much is expected. And so that's one of those things where rather than saying no to them forever, we wanted to create it's kind of like what Epic School Kids, the skiing program here in Utah does. It's like, hey, you can go ski for free, work on your skills because we want you to create a lifelong skier out of you and refine your skills so that into your 20s, 30s, 40s, and forever, you love to ski and you're good at it, And so it was one of those things where it's like, okay, let's help them, improve them, condition them, get them to the point where, okay, great. If I need education, okay, they're pointing me to some resources, and then they can try again. And so that's been the goal is working on both of those platforms so that we can kind of build that up and grow the company.
So how does Hire Mango work? Same model, but how does that work?
So Hire Mango basically, so sometimes we've got clients that don't fit our mold. Maybe they're a little bit, they're looking for something a little bit more project related, or they don't have a long-term perspective in terms of hiring folks, because we hire folks for the long term.
Yeah.
And then the goal is that they never want to leave because they're treated well. They love what they do. They never work more than 40 hours a week. They've got a great work and life balance. And so our attrition rate, KJ, is about 2%, which means our clients have an attrition rate that's 2%, which is where it should be. I mean, because it's like now they're not dealing with hiring, firing, training, and that whole rigmarole, and dealing with legal and HR, and they just I wanted to make sure we were the easy button for them in that respect. But with Hire Mango, the way that works is you've got a lot of amazing, ambitious, hardworking. I'm going to take my watch off because I feel like Siri is just on one today, and so what ends up happening is they're looking for an opportunity like everyone. And so now we're able to put clients in front of them that can hire them directly. And so it takes a little bit of the white glove component off. Like in KJ, everything's very concierge, very white glove. This is more like, oh, this person looks amazing. If anyone's familiar with like Upwork or Fiverr, it's kind of the same premise, but there's no setup fees, there's no goofiness. They're not competing with 100 other people for a position, and they're having to market themselves, and they've got 100 clients. No, it's one-to-one. So they're dedicated to one client. And so similar to KJ, it's like they're not shared. They're 100% committed to a client. And so we make sure that so the client pays us, Hire Mango or KJ, same way. The client pays us, and then all the compensation benefits, everything, higher education initiatives, everything that we do. We send the team on a summit every year. We just got back from Machu Picchu. We took the whole Latin American team to Machu Picchu, where we have team building and activities, and we have top speakers from around the world that will speak to them and inspire them and help them. Because the ultimate goal is I want, as I mentioned before, to create the Samsungs and LGs of the world, if you will, in those areas, because I'm only going to be able to impact, couple thousand jobs ultimately. Because it's a huge undertaking hiring. Because I meet with every single member of our team and welcome them to the team when they join KJ.
Oh, wow.
And so and that's the thing that gets me up in the morning at 6 a.m. to meet with members of the team wherever they are in the world. There's no other thing you could do to get me up at 6 a.m. but meeting someone and then hearing their story and like how their life is changing already. Those types of things. It's manna from heaven. I just love it. But yeah, being able to give them that opportunity. So what we find is, our members of our team represent the top 3% in each of their countries. And so we have some different things that we watch, some specific criteria that we look at after the first 12 months to see where they're at. So some daily reports, different things that they do, just to see if they can do the small things. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is find the entrepreneurs within our organization, the top 5% of that top 3% basically, that want to go and do something bigger and grander than just simply working for us. But one of the things I found is they've got the education, they've got the experience, they've got the English, but they're lacking the funds. And so the goal is that we have enough cash flow at that point, that we've put enough in the tank that we're able to invest that into these individuals, to the tune of $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, to give them the seed capital that they need to create their own unicorns in their own countries, which can then hire thousands of employees over time and change thousands of lives. And so I figure I've got 30, hopefully 20 or 30 years or more of time left in me. I'm 44. That will be able to create some of those mini unicorns around the world and invest in them. Sit on the board, help them, mentor them, bring in some of the most amazing folks to sit on that board to help inspire these individuals. And so we've partnered with Thunderbird in Arizona, being able to offer entrepreneurism courses and different things like that for members of our team. And so it's one of those things where if they're taking the initiative and taking these courses that are free that we've set up with them, those types of things. And so it's like, oh, you're interested in that. You want to do something that's going to move the needle? I love it. Let's talk more. Let's watch you over the next 12 to 24 months. And then we're going to invest in you and help you grow something that's going to be tremendous. Again, Bimbo Bakeries of Latin America, Udo Noodles of Africa. There's so many different companies that have done the exact same thing, but it's a long-term play. It's not simply, we want to build something, inject a bunch of money into it, and then turn and sell it in 3 years, 5 years, or something like that. But something lasting, a legacy, if you will, for that country, so that people say, you know what, I don't need to move to America because now I've got opportunity here and I can help everyone around me lift where they stand. And because I know if we can change the life of one individual, the husband, the wife, both of them, it affects their spouse, it affects their children, it affects their neighborhood, it affects their entire community. And then it changes that dynamic. Like a lot of people don't think about, South Korea was one of the poorest Asian countries in the world just 70 years ago.
Right.
And now they're one of the wealthiest. And it's because of opportunities that were provided by companies like Hyundai, LG, Samsung. I can go down the list. But it's all about jobs and infrastructure, and that changes the dynamic. And so that's the thing that I found. And I always joke, I'm like, I didn't find out what I wanted to do when I grew up until I was around 41 and almost 42. And then here we are, and so it's a passion project of mine. It's not really a project, but it's a passion. That's what I love to do. What
is the advantage to companies to hire from KJ over, trying to find something in the United States or whatever?
Great question. I'd say one of the number one things is that you have a workforce that is eager and grateful. And not only that, but you're not dealing with an absenteeism issue. You're not dealing with an HR issue, but you're also saving about 80% of what you'd be paying traditionally. So that $200,000 a year salary for someone that is a controller at a company, they could hire someone from us for about $3,000 per month. And they've got someone for $36,000 a year, and that's everything. They pay us a flat fee every single month, and we handle everything. They've got someone that is dedicated I was going to say 24/7, but they're not shared anywhere else, and they're in the trenches. And so it's funny, we have a client that they've hired a lot of members of our team. They have 10 accountants, for example. And I mean, we've got attorneys in law offices, we have architects, we have mechanical engineers, supply analysts. The big one right now is media buyers for e-commerce.
Really?
And data analysts. Those are like the two hot positions. We also have Chat GPT query experts. So they
prompt engineers?
They are prompt engineers.
Interesting.
They know exactly how to ask certain questions and get the result that they're looking for. And they're phenomenal at it. And that's where things are going, honestly. It's like, okay, I need you to do this and this. And so we've got those folks in play. And I love seeing their faces when they have it. When we give them the yes, and they just know, because they've seen family and friends in other areas that work with us, and they're just like, I've got folks. I had someone that she'd been with us for about she's still with us, but it was about 3 months in, and we're doing I was doing a quarterly interview with her, and that's when I was able to do it on a regular basis. But when you got, it's hard to do it when you got a couple hundred.
You can't scale man.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things we did in the beginning. And she's coming to me, and she's got tears in her eyes, and she's like, I want to thank you and Kajae for everything that you've done for me. This has been amazing. We're gonna be able to have children for the first time. I'm like, what? She goes, we could never afford to have kids. I'm like, what? I didn't know this was, and she goes, yeah. She goes, I'm a couple months pregnant, and it was like, what? And so I think she was like 2 months pregnant. She'd been with us for like 3 or 4 months or something like that. I think it was 3. Yeah. And so it was like very recent, and it was like, whoa. And it was just some of those types of things. You're like, I never got this in ice cream. I never got this with cranes. It's just like, wow, this is tremendous. And so being able to make a triple win is what I call it. It's like they get to win, the client gets to win, and we get to win.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Like some clients, they get mad when I tell them, I go, my number one priority is my member of my team. And they're like, what? I'm your client. I go, well, because if they're my number one priority, you better believe they pull out the stops for their client.
Yeah.
And then you're stoked and happy because of the work that they do. It's tremendous. And then you're happy with us, and it's a circle. Yeah. And that's the goal. And so, yeah, the team, they know it. They love it. They love what they do. They love having a work-life balance. But I think our clients really love the fact that it's so no nonsense. It's not some weird excuse as to why they can't come in, or, even hiring. I remember when we'd hire employees for Arctic Zero, and I'd peek my head into HR, and it was just always a gamble, I feel like. It's like, okay, we're going to hire this person. If we have to fire them, now we got to talk to legal. We have to deal with it the right way with HR. Did we document it correctly? Are we going to get ourselves sued? And it was like, this is such a nightmare. And in the whole hiring process, it's the whole hire slow, fire fast situation. And so with what we do, it was like, you just tell us what you're looking for. I always tell them, I go, tell me your dream hire and what they look like. And they give us a list. I'm like, okay, terrific. I go, in 5 to 7 days, we're going to present you with 3 folks from our warm bench that match that description you just gave us. And you're going to have the hard decision of deciding which of the 3 you want to move forward with. And then I said, once you give us a thumbs up on who, they're ready to go in 48 hours in the trenches with you.
Wow.
And I said, if they don't work out an hour in, a day in, a week in, a year in, whatever, I don't care what the reason is, you don't like the color of their shirt, it doesn't matter, we'll switch them out instantly. There's no issue whatsoever. And they're not fired unless they did something wrong or something like that. We'll just move them to a different part of the company, because they might be the perfect fit for another client. Maybe it was personality, but they've been so well vetted. They're so good at what they do. Sometimes it's just not a personality fit, and that's completely okay. And so they know that they've got to pull out the stops and do amazing work for their client. And so it's just, everyone wins. And that's I call it conscious capitalism. It's everyone that's vested in that gets to have this amazing outcome. And it's not because my background after my mission to Mexico, I was on Wall Street as a financial advisor. I had my 7 and 66 back in the day. And I hated it, because not only did I have to fill out a ton of paperwork all the time, but there always had to be a winner and a loser in a transaction. I go, this sucks, And so fast forwarding years and years later, right? It feels like eons, the fact that everyone can benefit and improve and grow, and it satisfies so many needs of both the individual on our team as well as the client, in one way or the other. It's just like, it worked out in perfect harmony.
It's incredible, man. Yeah, the story is insane, actually, when you think about the kind of the lives you're changing, and it all working the way you're saying. Finally, why is Utah important? Why build in Silicon Slopes?
Well, I think, one, I live in the Traverse Mountain area. So I feel like I'm in the heart, right?
You are in the heart.
Yeah.
For sure.
And people always tell me, they're like, why did you move from San Diego to Utah? And I'm like, spoken like someone that only visits or vacations in California.
Mm-hmm.
I go, until you're paying a $600 electric bill or sitting on the 91 freeway at 8 in the morning for the next hour to 2 hours to go 12 miles. It's like, no, thank you. And I love Utah because Utah is so entrepreneurial. They're so motivated. They're so enthusiastic. Everything's clean and vibrant. I always say, if you're going to judge a state, judge it by the quality of its gas stations. I go, look at AM PM gas stations in California. They are a cesspool. They are disgusting. Like, you feel bad having shoes on because the bottom of your shoes are so gross now. You go to a Maverick station, it's like, well, I can see my face in this floor. It's just beautiful. And I feel like that's so reminiscent of everything in Utah. Everything is just clean and crisp and pure. The people, having conversations with people, they're just smiling and they're being genuine about it, as opposed to anytime I'm in California, New York or something, it's like, what do you want? Why are you here? Like, I'm inconveniencing them, even though they're being paid to be there behind a cash register. It's like, whoa, so sorry. But I love that. I love the fact I've got four kids. I have 5 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to hold me to that. They're going to be like, what? Who'd you leave out, Dad? I've got 5 kids, ages 19 down to 7. And I would always get the looks in California. It's like, are you done having kids? It's like, why is it any of your business? And it was just like, you get these eyes, like, you're ruining the environment. You have too many kids. It's like, whoa. You come to Utah, it's like, all right, 5's the new 9, It's like, and so it's one of those things where it's like, man, I just love being around like-minded people that understand fiscal responsibility. Like, I don't mind paying, it sounds weird when I say this, so I'm going to get a lot of people that are going to be mad at me. I don't mind paying state tax because I know the state's good with my money for the most part. They've created rainy day funds and endowment funds and all these amazing things that they do. Whereas in California, it was like, oh, here's some more money that's going to some pork bill over here, and it's never going to actually go into anything and make a difference. And so I feel like it's like, man, the state's got so many good things going on. But I guess maybe it's the optimist in me. I don't want to sound like I'm naive or something like that. But the fact is it's just there's so many good things going on with such brilliant leaders doing amazing things that, man, why would you want to be anywhere else?
Yeah, for sure. Utah's a very, very special place. How do people get in touch with you? Tell everybody how to, because I'm sure there's people who are listening to this or right now are like, how do I hire people from KJ?
Love it. Well, they can come to the site. KJ spelled, actually, KJ stands for the names of my kids. Kate, Ariana, Jack, Alexa, Ethan.
It's even weirder you said 4 then.
Yeah, I know, real weird. Like, who did I leave out, right? Was that a letter? Was it a consonant? And then it means gift from God in Jamaican. And I didn't know that until months later after we had put it together. But they can go to kj.com and they can reach out and say, I want somebody. They can also reach out to me on LinkedIn and follow me, send me a message, whatever it is that I can do for them. And then I'll put them in touch. They can also send an email if they want to. You can send it to Brandy, BRANDI at kj.com, or you could send it to sales@kj.com. And then I'm wondering if I should put my name out there.
Go ahead.
Or if it's one of those things where it's like, I am going to get bombarded.
You are going to get bombarded, but
okay.
That's going to happen
It's
anyways.
It's going to be good. So, or you can send it to me directly, Garrett at KJ. My name's 2 R's and 2 T's. For any of the Garretts out there, I'm sorry, but I spell it the right way, 2 R's, 2 T's. And it's a running joke between anyone that's, well, Yeah, I was talking to Garrett. Yeah. He's like, yeah, we spell it the same way. Yeah. Great minds think alike. And, but yeah, those are some of the ways that they could get a hold of me. It's love, anything we can do for anybody. I just love it. I'll let you go with this. I had someone that reached out and they're like, Garrett, we've got a $10,000 budget for this position. I go, well, number one, don't ever tell people what your budget is, because now we're going to go, okay, well, let's see if we can do it for $9,980. Mm-hmm. And I said, you're looking to hire one person for $10,000 a month. I go, well, we don't really deal with domestic hires too much. We've got a partner we can refer you to that can handle some of that stuff. But I said, what I would like to do is if you wouldn't mind hiring 4 people for that $10,000, basically, and we can create 4 jobs in different respective areas that can do amazing things for you. And you're still spending that $10,000, but now you've helped 4 people rather than just 1. And if that number needs to come down more, maybe it's $5,000 or something like that. Now you've hired 2 people rather than 1. I said, I'm all about how many jobs can we create and how many people can we move the needle in their lives in a positive way. And so, yeah, just love it. Just love it.
You've had an incredible career, and it feels like it's only starting.
It's thank you. It's fun. It's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's there's been a lot of hard stuff.
Oh, it's way hard. All that stuff's hard.
I was telling someone, I'm like, and I tell members of our team, I go, embrace the hard stuff. And I've told some clients this too. I said, you're hiring, and I hate to say this, but we've got a lot of workers in America that are soft. They've never done anything hard. They're demanding this, they're demanding that. They want free massages on Fridays, just random stuff to be, you're lucky to have me as an employee type of a mentality. And I thought, we've got a member of our team. She grew up in what's called the slums of Manila. And if anyone's familiar with like homelessness they think about Salt Lake, you got, I think they said between 600 and 1,000 individuals that are homeless. And don't get me wrong, it's a terrible thing. And unfortunately, we've got some different things to kind of help kind of move people out of those positions, whether it's mental health, help or food or shelter, a combination of all of those. But in Manila, one of the most populated cities in the world, you have over 3.2 million people that are homeless. So the entire population of Utah in one city is homeless. They live incredibly, like you've never seen anything like it. It's unbelievable. Like you walk these streets, you see this, and it's just like, this. Everyone needs to see this. And 1.2 million of them are children under the age of 10. So one of the members of our team, I'm trying to think. She went to the top school in the Philippines, and she got like some crazy grants and scholarships. And she was like, grew up living on a floor that was like 3 feet off the ground, because when it would rain, the water would come underneath them and flood. And so her house was it was elevated, but it was tilted because they didn't have a strong foundation on it. And they didn't have a door. They had like a cloth, and their family got by on $2 a day. And so she's like, I want to change my stars, basically, if you borrow a line from one of my favorite movies growing up. And she goes, I remember we interviewed her, and she goes, I can do hard things.
It's like, yeah.
I'm like, holy smokes, yes, you can. And so she's like, what I would love to do. She goes, I would love to be a CEO, an entrepreneur of a business of my own making. And I was like, that is why we hired you.
Yeah.
And so it was super, super amazing to be able to just have her in front of us and her telling us, these are the things that I want to do. My story hasn't been written. This is what I'm excited to do. And I'm like, we got big plans for you. You just wait.
That's beautiful.
Super cool.
Garrett, thanks for coming in. Really appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. It's great being here.